Theo, you're on my bed there. I think you are. Good climbing. Oh, bonk. Oh. Nice.
Are you happy with this? Yeah. I'm looking for your artistic expertise around. Do you feel this is a satisfaction? Having a tree name.
You two, I'm reading aloud something I've written in the front room to some of the family.
Oh, nice.
Against the gloom, the only light was the piercing glow of shop signs and the dull flicker of the looming lampposts that lined the pavements. Distantly, a helicopter rattled out his golden hair. Shake the rainwater out of your hair. It's alright, it's locked. And out of instinct, he swerved left at full speed. He only just had time to yell. You need to yell, what the hell? What the hell? On wind, I need someone to be wind. No, I mean be wind, like brushing in. Pushed his static fingers all over.
He's in the octagon. I do know where he is. Octagon? Yes, at the bottom of the garden. Do you need him now? I'm not sure. We need to go and get the wish tree, don't we? Jenny, what's the plan for seating now? Because I rose with a little.
And there'll be lots of hands on deck later, won't there?
Well, exactly. Why don't we just do that? We can join them as we go.
He's so good. Oh, they're going to do that. I had a vision of him.
Yes, sorry.
That could be hilarious. It might be like a life of
Phil, can I have the ready
I need to go and get some.
Do you want to look at some toys? Look.
Yeah.
Look, toys. Look. Let's show you some toys.
time. We've got plenty of time
I'll stand behind you throughout then.
That's a fine.
So I'm not in the
It's
video.
probably too late. You're probably already in it.
Do you remember my video?
Emma, we'll walk on with you.
Me and the kids are coming in.
And Neil.
I was going to give this to Matt.
And it also means you don't have to wait in the rain.
It's been good, isn't it? It's been
He's standing for the bride.
of applause. What a wonderful achievement to be stood here at the front in this teepee on this occasion. A very good morning to you. A moderately warm welcome to the teepee. You're all very, very welcome here today. My name's Graham. I had the honour of conducting the wedding ceremony of Emma and Phil last year. You weren't there, Theo? No, well, you sort of were, yes. It's a great joy for me to be here today to celebrate with you the marriage of Emma and Phil, and also to share in the naming ceremony for Theo Taylor Edward Tatnall. Yay! Theo Taylor Edward wrote a poem when Theo was born, which she's now going to read.
This was inspired by Emma's very difficult birth. But it's not anything to worry about. Smelted by pressure in a white hot furnace, forged with force into shape, until a pure, soft kernel remains. Then, with oh so gentle hands, the most beautiful, delicate being emerges. May you shine with a heart of gold, most precious, beloved Theo.
So if I might invite both sets of grandparents down around there, yeah. So first of all, Grandma and Jeff, yes. So we're going to invite you to pour in your sand, and then you're going to repeat just a few words after me, but I think I'll let you focus on the sand pouring, and then we'll share the words. Off we go, there goes the sand. Nice colours. Okay, now if you would just repeat after me, Grandma and Jeff. This sand is a sign of our commitment.
This sand is a sign of our commitment.
To love and cherish our grandson Theo.
To love and cherish our grandson Theo.
Throughout his life.
Throughout his life.
Thank you. Thank you. And now, Granny-Ma and Gramps. Oh, there we go. There we go. We're doing a dance.
Don't move that.
In goes the sand, intermingled and inseparable.
Very important.
Grandson took a long time. Anyway, if you would please repeat after me. This sand is a sign of our commitment.
This sand is a sign of our commitment.
To love and cherish our grandson Theo.
To love and cherish our grandson Theo.
Throughout his life.
Throughout his life.
Thank you. Thank you. You practiced. Oh, well.
Don't say that.
It should be impressive then.
It's going to go all over the table.
Pink and green. Beautiful. Yes. Well, would you like to repeat after me, Anna, before? Yeah. So, you rehearsed, yeah? This sand is a sign of our commitment.
This sand is a sign of our commitment.
To love and cherish our son Theo.
To love and cherish our son Theo.
Throughout his life.
Throughout his life.
Okay, now it's Theo's. So Theo, you've put your sand in on the foundations that have been built by your grandparents and your parents from your sandpit, but it's in the spirit of your sandpit, which is currently your happy place. Good. Now, if we could have our two godparents, so Hilary and Tracy, and Hilary is going to give. Faith has been an important part of Emma's life, and she would like you to know, Theo, that if you want to explore faith in the future and what it might mean for you, you have a church family represented by this candle. And Hilary and Tracy to answer any difficult God-related questions you might have. Okay? So we'll be forming an orderly queue in front of Hilary and Tracy afterwards. But that's for you, Theo. Okay? That's your candle.
Thank you.
So now, godparents, yes, you can intermingle your sand if you would. Oh, perfect. You will all get the opportunity to get a close-up view of this after. So, would you like to? I think we can seal it, can we?
Yeah, I think we can. If it's totally full, I've got spare sand. If it's not,
It looks pretty full to me.
yeah, perfect.
Okay. And if Tracy and Hilary could repeat after me. Theo, this sand is a sign of our commitment
Theo, this sand is a sign of our commitment
to love and cherish you throughout your life.
to love and cherish you throughout your life.
Thank you. Should we again give Theo Taylor Edward Tannell a round of applause? He's also soaking wet. We're going to move on to the celebration of Emma and Phil's marriage, which is now, what, a good 17 months old, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah? It was a snowy Saturday in February, and now it's a rainy Saturday in July.
It's not an omen. Right.
There will be blue skies later, won't there? Yeah. So, first of all, we're going to listen to some wisdom, or hear some wisdom from a range of sources as we give thanks for the gift of marriage. First of all, from Emmy van Derzen, who wrote these words about what is marriage. Any good story is based on an artful interaction between the tensions of success and failure, fortune and misfortune, happiness and misery, or even of good and evil. And so it is in good relationships as well. Strong relationships have weathered some fierce storms. They do not consist of a long sequence of easy days, where partners enjoy the blue skies of love and happiness without interruption. Good relationships are created slowly but surely. They require us to address the differences and difficulties between our partner and ourselves on a daily basis. Life events expose us to constant trials and tribulations that test our ability to become vital. We need to know how to make each other and ourselves safe, as well as finding the courage to face these difficult explorations together. The feeling of love is generated when we discover that we care as much for each other's well-being as for our own, and that the same is true the other way round. The wisdom of Emmy van Derzen. And now the wisdom of St. Paul from his first letter to the Corinthians. in the Bible, and chapter 13 is hymn to love. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things.
This is a poem by Carl Sandburg, Don't Eat My Flowers. I love you for what you are, but I love you yet more for what you're going to be. I love you not so much for your realities as for your ideals. I pray for your desires that they may be great, rather than for your satisfactions which may be so hazardously little. A satisfied flower is one whose petals are about to fall. The most beautiful rose is one hardly more than a bud, wherein the pangs and ecstasies of desire are working for a larger and finer growth. Not always shall you be what you are now, you are going forward towards something great. I am on the way with you, and therefore I love you.
Now Phil is going to channel his inner Captain Archer from the Star Trek.
Yeah, a lot of Star Trek references today, so if you're a Star Wars fan, feel free to leave now. Surprising how many of the speeches are all about space and things blowing up in Klingons, so I tried to find one about love. This is the best I can do. So, we're all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shore. And yet the more I've experienced, the more I've learned that no matter how far we travel, or how fast we get there, the most profound discoveries are not necessarily beyond the next star. They're within us, woven into the threads that join us to each other. The final frontier begins in this room. Let's explore it together.
I told you we were going to be treated to some wisdom, and there we have been. We're going to just listen to a bit of music.
Singing a song, nothing but bluebirds all day long. Never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right. Noticing the days hurrying by, wondering along my highway
to gently care, to heartily laugh, to selflessly give, to convincingly commit, to openly share, to curiously wonder, to resiliently endure, to sensitively comfort, to joyfully celebrate, to gratefully receive, and to generously love. But I thought, seeing as you've been married for 15, 17 months, we should stop splitting our infinitives and just go for infinitives. Yeah? And so from the most famous split infinitive on television to the most famous infinitive in literature, to be or not to be. And it strikes me, as I was reflecting on the wisdom that we've heard and reflecting on the joy and the ceremony that we shared in last year and this year, that there's very evidently a commitment from both of you to be realistic, to be hopeful, and to be authentic. Yes, Theo. And Kate. A commitment to Kate. A commitment also, though, to be hopeful and adventurous. Alright? So it's not just about hard work and being realistic and battling on through, but there is a hopefulness to this wisdom and to your relationship. I want many years ago, I read a sort of psychobabble book called why am I afraid to tell you who I am? Why am I afraid to tell you who I am? And the answer to that question was, because it's all that I have and you might not like it. Yeah? But it seems to me that you are telling each other who you are. And that you're not afraid to share with each other who you are. Phil and Theo, I'm sure. Okay? So are you ready? Yes. I ask you, the families and friends of Emma and Phil, will you do all in your power to support and encourage them in their marriage?
We will!
Much obliged. So we pray a blessing on these rings, which are symbols of the love and the trust between Emma and Phil. Amen. So acknowledging and celebrating your love for one another, repeat together after me. I am joined to you in marriage.
I am joined to you in marriage.
For better, for worse.
For better, for worse.
For richer, for poorer.
For richer, for poorer.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
To love and to cherish.
To love and to cherish.
Now and always.
Now and always.
And a Celtic prayer of blessings. May Phil and Emma taste the rich wine of love. Let their love be a listening, forgiving, honest, caring, sharing. A sharing of delight and chores, of good times and bad. And may they grow and flourish, lovers bound and yet free. And we continue to offer our prayers and our thoughts for Emma and Phil and for Theo, for their love, for their marriage, for their home, for their families and communities, for all who are gathered here today, for any who are not able to be present today. The searing of shooting stars, the colours of the planets in the night sky, the space and power beyond our perceiving, which sparkles the sky of our lives. Let us give thanks for the gift of our breath, the beat of our hearts, the love that we make, the hope that we cherish, and the grace that encompasses us. And may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all now and evermore. Seize the time, live now, make now the most precious time. Now will never come again. Amen.
This
to think about how we do that. So what I'm going to suggest is, if you just rearrange the furniture however you like, so that you're comfortable to sit and eat pizza.
Grab a confetti cone. Wait, who's talking?
Got the control behind you.
Okay, ready?
Ready?
You ready?
Ready.
1, 2, 3!
Very directional.
I don't know where Arthur's gone.
Right, okay. I'm just going to ignore my child and see what happens. He's trying to watch Room with a Broom because he's obsessed with it at the moment, but the internet's not working, so I think he's come to tell me that he's not getting a signal. Right, so, thank you all for coming, first of all. I hope you have all eaten sufficient pizza.
Yeah!
There's probably some more lurking about if you haven't. So I started writing this speech about a month ago. In my head, while I was mopping the kitchen floor. I was convinced it was a work of genius. Somehow, mopping the kitchen floor was exactly like marriage. I'd never done it before. I hadn't got a clue what I was doing. And I kept ending up with bits of dirt in a pile that the mop couldn't pick up. But now I've no idea what that had to do with anything, because I didn't write it down quick enough. So I've looked backwards for this speech instead, to seek advice from 10-year-old me. She also planned her wedding speech, primarily the fact that she was going to make one. She was not going to let all the men speak and remain silent. Or silently demure, as I've written here. It's one of my characteristics, those of you who know me well. I am often silently demure.
I can attest to that.
She was going to find a man who would take her surname. She was very, very adamant about that. And she was certainly always going to put her own bins out. She also had no doubt that said man would turn up one day without her making any effort and sweep her off her feet. So, back to real life. It was an absolute miracle that I found Phil. I absolutely hate internet dating. There are too many stories to recount, but Phil Braithwaite, if anyone wants to know any of them, they're all stashed away in his photographic memory. So by the time I met Phil, I got to the point where I was only meeting people if they were willing to go for a dog walk with me. So that by the time I'd finished the date, at least the dog had had a walk. So we met by the Millennium Bridge. Within 30 seconds, Phil had the lick of approval from Lottie, which was the first criteria for success. One thing led to another. And within 3 months, I decided to dump him and move on. But then I realised he hadn't actually mentioned that I had to take his name. Oh, Theo, man. Come here. It's all a bit much, isn't it? And he'd never tried to stop me from talking, and he never once had tried to put my bins out. So I thought I'd better reconsider. later, I decided to marry him instead.
And now he puts the bins out.
I'm coming to that.
Do you put the bins out?
I'm coming to that. So, now a few things you need to know about this amazing man. He is the kindest, most loving man I ever dated, and as previously referenced, there were lots of those. There's only one man that stops me talking. He genuinely cares about how I feel, and he listens to me, and he does everything he can to help when things get tough. He's an incredible cook, and he comes up with healthy, child-friendly meals every day and has them on the table by 5:30. And he often also gets lumbered with clearing up while I put Theo to bed. He's a brilliant gardener, and he created a haven in our garden which is loved by me and Theo. The birds, the bees, the dog, the hedgehogs, and a large and happy family of mice. Percussion provided by Theo. Right, can you go down for a minute? Go and find some more food. Yeah. Go on. Perhaps his most admirable quality, and one which I envy, is his courage. Go and sit down, go on. Phil needs to listen to this, he hasn't heard it. Sit and listen, concentrate.
Yes, ma'am.
Perhaps his most admirable quality, and one which I envy, is his courage. His ability to feel the fear and do things anyway. So, for example, he does not enjoy driving, but he will drive us for 6 hours down to Devon while me and Theo sleep in the back. Admittedly, after I've done some Theo wrangling, which he wouldn't like to do. So far, he has been a wonderful father to Theo, and even though the thought of parenthood scared the bleep out of both of us, and it's so easy now. He's been hands-on from day one, despite having never held a baby before. Right, Theo, we need to sort this out. This is not working. Theo! This is not working. I need someone to hold my speech. Right, there, let's do it like that. Okay. He's been hands-on from day one, despite never having held a baby before, and the love and care that he has shown to our little boy has been a joy to observe and has increased my love for him in a way that I didn't even think was possible. He even puts up with our raucous rough and tumble sessions after dinner, even though in the past raucous children was a big reason not to have one. Anyway, back to me, because Theo's only 15 months worth of this story, although he'd have you believe otherwise. It takes a special kind of person to keep up with my quirks, and Phil manages it admirably. So, I say, why don't we go bodyboarding? And a couple of weeks later, we're kitted out with winter wetsuits, riding the waves every other week. In fact, Phil actually proposed to me on the northeast coast. It was one of those split-second decisions, as if he hadn't done it the moment he did, we'd have both been swept away on an enormous wave. So there's nothing like impending doom to get the job done. And then, so I say, it's a pandemic, the swimming pool's shut, let's do wild swimming. 2 weeks later, we're breaststroking down the ooze. And finally, I say, let's have a baby! It'll take at least a year with loads of procreation. And 3 weeks later, Phil's disappointed. So, thank you, my darling, for every adventure we have had and will have. The future is inevitably going to be exciting and challenging, and I know you're up for it. I haven't told anybody to get their glasses charged. I was going to raise a toast to Phil and the future, so if you could just pretend, and then I'll have a short interlude to Phil and the future. I'd like to briefly go back to 10-year-old me. So she was right about the need for a speech, but she did get a couple of things wrong. Turns out it's okay to keep your own surname without forcing your husband to take yours. It also turns out I don't mind the fact that he puts the bins out, cooks the dinner, cleans the kitchen, and manages the garden. 10-year-old me is shocked and appalled, but 41-year-old me has suddenly discovered just how much energy is needed to look after a 15-month-old and start up a counselling business. And she's also slightly less strident in her feminism. Finally, a few thank yous. There's too many to list individually, but you know who you are. Sound man, wardrobe, hair, makeup, my production. Anyone who's relieved me of Theo duty this week to help with planning and preparation. Everyone who has donated to our funds. Very much appreciated. A couple of names we do need to mention. My cousin Anna for this amazing cake, which we're going to cut in a minute. And Graham for turning out twice to lead 2 ceremonies. I'm not sure he knew quite what he was agreeing to when he agreed to marry me. Thank you all for listening, and if anyone works out what a pile of dirt and a deficiency in the mopping arena has to do with marriage, please let me know.
So hi everyone, I'm Ian. It's so nice to be gathered here today to celebrate Phil and Emma, and of course little Theo. So I first met Phil when I joined his form group at secondary school, aged about 12 years old. Before long we were walking to school together, spending after school and weekend time together, has become close friends. One early memory I have of this time is meeting up with Phil and some of our other friends as well in his spare room in Wigginton and getting consistently beaten at the game Halo on the Xbox, which he was an early adopter of. But it wasn't all video games. I had the pleasure to enjoy lots of different leisurely pursuits with Phil growing up. There was lots of bike rides together, we went running, had several close-run tennis matches at the tennis club, went through Scouts in the same troop, and we completed our Duke of Edinburgh Bronze Award, many parts of that together as well. We remained in the same form through GCSEs and sixth form as well, because that was at the same school, Joseph Rowntree School in York. And I always think of that time, the end of sixth form, when that approaches and when it's there, everybody's sort of getting a bit misty-eyed and looking to their future, if that's what makes sense, or it's not the past, I'm not sure. Everyone's facing their future, and the way I recall it, it may not be historically accurate, but I recall that Phil was one of the first in our big friendship group to pass his driving test. So it's funny you should mention driving, actually, Emma, yeah. So I look fondly back on that first voyage that we all had together, full car to Brimham Rocks near Ripon, which seemed to be the go-to place for those who had just passed their test, and Phil was at the wheel, so that was great. Over the years, as many of you will know, his jobs have altered, but his career theme has always been focused on wildlife education and promoting the protection of our natural world, which I'm sure you'll agree is a very worthy cause. It's taken him both nearish and very far, from Scotland to Madagascar, and we've kept in touch throughout it, of course. In fact, Phil has felt my presence during his travels, like it or not. Apparently, one of the very first people that he spoke to in Madagascar, someone who he'd met there and then for the very first time, was soon asking Phil about whether he knew a certain Ian Wilmot from York.
6,000 miles!
To this day, neither of us quite know how that happened or who that was. A memorable holiday we all made out of visiting Phil during one of his jobs away when he couldn't come to visit us was when we joined him during a rare free weekend that he had whilst working under the tenure of the frightening one known only as Sir in Scotland. It was a great weekend where we got up close with nature, including being privileged enough to see some rare wildcats. But it was equally enjoyable just listening to Phil's tales of life on the road with 15 or so international tourists, which he counted 15 off the bus, 15 on, but not necessarily the same ones each time, but that was his role. And his efforts to convince them that haggis was in fact a rare indigenous species of wildlife in Scotland. More recently, during lockdown, when we couldn't meet up in person and spirits were in danger of lowering, Phil kept them up by concocting imaginative virtual board games or virtual escape rooms which were playable via video link online. You know, we all remember those Zoom days. And then when we could meet up in person, we've played a number of highly exclusive Phil Taylor originals that have been meticulously made, tested, and great games. And I'm sure many of us here today actually will have sampled one of Phil's games in one way or another. They're very entertaining. So, Emma, hailing from different parts than these, I have not known since I was 12 years old, but it's plain to see that in Emma, Phil has found someone very loving and caring, and who also seems to have a bold creative side. I can't tell you how great it is that he's found someone like Emma, and to see the two of them together. There's this stereotype, isn't there, that when you your best friend gets wed, that you can kiss goodbye to having any fun with them or even seeing them. But let me happily report that this is not the case with Phil and Emma. Indeed, Emma welcomes us wholeheartedly, which is so cheering. We're still meeting up now, playing video games or board games, or just sitting around and having an in-depth debate about whether the events of Star Trek Lower Decks can be considered canon. And of course, it's not only Emma's life that we are welcomed into, but also Theo's as well. I wonder, in the future, what will be passed on to Theo the most? It's hard to say, but he's going to get a mixture of musical talents, love of nature, great cooking and gardening by the sounds of it, and creativity. It's a great mix of things. So there we go. Let's toast, or virtually toast, the happy couple and the happy family, Phil and Emma, and little Theo too, and all who sail with them. Hooray!
I have limited experience using a microphone, so can you hear me at the back?
Yeah.
Marvellous. Right. Well, I wasn't going to write a speech, but then I was worried I'd regret it. So I've written one, and I'm going to make you guys regret it. That's fine. Now, first of all, I want to thank you all for coming here today to celebrate Theo's naming and our marriage a mere 519 days after the original ceremony. So who said we're procrastinators? I don't know. Now, Emma knows that I've not been to many weddings, so I didn't know what goes in a groom's speech, so I had to Google it. I had to look up a template to see what happens. Apparently this is the point where I'm supposed to compliment my wife. Hello. So it goes, my dearest, insert name here. You are my darling, / my guiding star, / rock my world, delete as applicable. In all seriousness, I owe Emma a massive thanks, as does everyone in this room, for organising this day. She's been the driving force behind this. I have floated around, fretting, worrying. I tried to help where I could. I made hot drinks. Not for her, obviously. For me, my throat gets really parched this time of year. Lots of hay fever. But in all fairness, it's her. She's done this, so I'm very grateful that you kind of poked me in the right direction. Now, speaking of poking, no smutty laughs. That's really the best thing about Emma, is your sort of hurricane approach to life. You're sort of charging ever onwards to new adventures. And you've kind of brought me along for the ride. Not in a kind of creepy kidnapping way, but more in a sort of, you've opened my mind to new experiences. Swimming in the North Sea, as we mentioned, is very cold. Snorkeling, looking after a dog that's Lottie. Have you met Lottie? That is a challenge. Starting a family. This little guy. And they're all good decisions. I don't regret anything. Almost anything. The presence of mayonnaise in the fridge troubles me on a daily basis. It's horrible, but I live with it. But anyway, we've basically accomplished this as a team, and that's really the great thing. So you've helped me become a more interesting person, contrary to appearances. Yeah. You've helped me become a better person. Maybe I'm not the best version I can be just yet. There's always room for improvement, overcome some anxieties, perfect that cheese scone recipe, but I'm on the way. I'm always charging towards it and becoming the best version of me that I want to be, and that version wants to be with you. So I really want to thank you for being my inspiration. So yeah, Emma Tatnall, thank you. everyone seems to be thanked. I want to thank Ian for his speech, and I was going to thank Graham. Graham's been thanked already for doing this twice, but also for not raising a single eyebrow at all the Star Trek references we've sneaked in. You're very gracious. So thank you very much. And who is next? Is it Simon? Simon. Go, oh my goodness. Right, the microphone is fake.
Hello. When I gave my speech at Jenny's wedding, Jenny and Matt, I used this bird to demonstrate how I met Matt when he was first a teenager. And I expect you're wondering, that's amazing that he can get this bird in again when about Phil and Emma. Well, I can't. It was just an unashamedly something to interest my grandchildren, James, Licia, Rowan, Arthur and Theo.
He wanted it.
You can have it.
That's really wrong.
And if they listen for the next 3 minutes, I will use their names again at the end of this speech. So now I think it's my job. It's a traditional, I'm afraid for you, not really. It's a traditional father of the bride speech where I can get sentimental if I want to. So, who do I see when I look at Emma? I see the woman who, as a baby, changed my life forever. Many of people here know I gave up my glittering career in a bank to become what was called in those days a house husband. As the term housewife is now passé, I would hope that the term house husband is too. So who do I see when I look at Emma? The baby who lay in my arms in the middle of the night as I rocked her back to sleep after a feed. Am I doing feedback, talking of feed?
I just have to hold it in.
Oh, no, it's a joke there. The baby, who do I see when I look at Emma? Sorry, the baby who lay in my arms in the middle of the night as I rocked her back to sleep after a feed. The baby who lay and looked up into my eyes as if she knew something that I didn't. The baby who I got up to in the night when she cried. Who else do I see when I look at Emma? The little girl I looked after as she grew up, who cuddled up to me when she was scared, who I picked up and cuddled when she hurt herself, whose brother I picked up and cuddled after she'd pushed him over. The little girl who literally ran before she could walk. The little girl whose smile as that child charging round the house is the same smile I see on the woman today. I could probably manage without this, to be honest. If I talk like this, can you hear me? Yeah! Right, forget it. I'll project. So who else do I see when I look at Emma? The teenager who practiced her flute without being reminded, who worked really hard to achieve what she wanted, who succeeded in almost everything she did. Most memorably, after I told her to think bird, and I watched her sail over the bar of the high jump competition. Thank you, Matt. So who else do I see when I look at Emma? The flute player extraordinaire. For me, her greatest achievement was when she played through the whole of my production of Carmen. Ladies and gentlemen, she played from the start to the finish with hardly a break, and she rehearsed all afternoon and played all evening. An arrangement for piano, cello and flute seemed a good idea at the time. It was unforgettable. She's not only a fantastic flute player, but a highly talented musician all round. And who else do I see when I look at Emma? A very talented, clever woman who forges her life with passion and skill. She knows what she wants, and she does what is necessary to get it. 3 years ago, she decided to become a counsellor, therapist, and like everything she does, she dived in, and despite all sorts of trials and tribulations, losing job, COVID, she came out the other side with a distinction. So today, who do I see when I look at Emma? My eldest daughter, a mother with a son of her own. She'll be a mother as she's been a baby, a child, a teenager and a woman with every ounce of her being. Committing fully to the task, loving, caring, fiercely protective. A mother any son would be proud of, as she is a daughter any father would be proud of. I have 2 son-in-laws and I'm blessed. I'm lucky enough to be able to repeat part of my speech that I gave at Jenny's wedding. This time it's even more relevant. Teenagers put up posters of heroes and heroines, and Emma had a picture of Lizzie Bennet from the series we all watched avidly as a family, Pride and Prejudice. And when Mr. Bennet is talking to Mr. Bingham, who is about to marry his oldest daughter, see the relevance. He says, there are few men whose society I can tolerate with equanimity, but I believe you maybe turn out to be one of them. Phil has definitely turned out to be one of those men whose company I can tolerate. Just as Matt has. But who do I see when I look at Phil? Not obviously those layers that I see when I look at Emma, but I see a caring, sensitive man who loves my daughter. He's a man of many talents. You've actually heard most of those already. Writer, artist, amazing online creator. He was a part of what kept us sane in lockdown, creating and organising those online games you've also heard about. Star Trek and Doctor Who are his specialist subjects. He has a huge knowledge of the natural world. A little anecdote about Phil, relating to me. After a cold winter trek into York with Jenny and her family, we were all resting on some steps in the park and having a drink. Suddenly, Phil was beside me, slipping a bar of chocolate orange into my hand without a word. I say no more. What do I see when I look at Phil and Emma? A partnership that works. You've also heard this bit too. Emma crept into her 30s having had a few strange boyfriends. And as parents do, I say something like, what Emma needs is someone to share the things she does. And lo and behold, they walk together, swim together, as you've heard, boogie board together. But there is one important function that Phil fulfilled, no one fulfilled until Phil came along. When Emma needs cake, Phil is there with cake. His culinary skills are legendary. My highlight was the chocolate orange Yule log he made last Christmas. This was no ordinary log. It had branches, some with just chocolate and some with chocolate orange. It's phenomenal. Which brings me, talking of chocolate and phenomenal, to Theo. What do I see when I look at Theo? A beloved son and grandson and nephew. Cousin to James, Lucia, Rowan and Arthur. Said I'd get them in again at the end. I see an absolute sweetie with a smile. Perfect timing. With a smile that lights up the room. A chuckle that makes everyone around him chuckle. A boy who is communicating amazingly already. And I see the potential for a brilliant life with all these people around him. As they say, you should really be upstanding, but don't bother because you haven't got any drinks. It's customary for the bride's father to toast the happy couple, but I think today it's right to toast the happy trio, Emma, Phil and Theo.
Remember the story of the Tower of Babel? Just don't push too hard.
You guys can play the second.
Yes! We didn't want to play the second.
Sneaky.
Oh!
Smash-a-rooney.
Oh, what a shot! What a shot!
Oh, no, I got in the way. No, you got in the way of that.
The one with the end of pie!
Violet.
Vicky!